Hey you guys, hello! Oh my goodness, it's so good to be here. And I had some technical difficulties, but hopefully we are rolling. And we will be discussing What Comes After by Joanne Tompkins tonight. And I can't wait to talk to you all about this book because it really was powerful, I think. And I've heard really great responses from you guys on that you liked the book. So I can't wait to discuss it with you. And so I'll give everyone another minute or so to join. And then, of course, I have a bajillion notes as usual to go over. So, as you're joining, let me know your thoughts on what comes after, if you enjoyed it, favorite parts, like lasting impressions, anything you want to share. I would love to hear it. And definitely say hey in the chat as you're joining. Thank you all so much for being here. And yeah, I can't wait to talk to you tonight. And hopefully the lighting's a bit better. We were fixing it before the stream, so hopefully it's okay. And I have my fan on because I'm so warm. But anyway, oh my gosh, hey Jamie, thanks so much for being here. I can't wait to hear what you thought about this. And I like throughout the book, I kept thinking of your post where you were like 80% of the way in and like crying. And I'm pretty sure I know what part that you were referencing now. So I can't wait to talk about it. Hey everyone. Oh my gosh, what do you guys think of what comes after? Leave your like first impressions, final impressions, anything you want to say about this in the chat. I would love to know. And that's where I love to start out, is if you guys enjoyed the book and if you got into it right away, or if it was like a slow burn, like were you hooked or did it take you a while? So for me, I was immediately hooked, and I read this while we were on vacation. Gosh, it feels like forever ago, like not this weekend, but last weekend. And then I finished it when we got home, and I literally did not want to put this book down. It was so gripping to me. And I feel like a lot of it, of course, had to do with the plot, but the author's like writing was so just like rhythmic or something to me. Like there was just like a very like nice pace to how she wrote. And this is actually Joanne Tompkins' first book, which I think is really impressive for how like well done this book is. Like I don't know. I'm just excited to see what else she comes out with in the future. And I read a really interesting interview with her on the Shondaland website and like news outlet or whatever. And it was a really great interview. And I had read at the back cover that she used to be like a lawyer and a mediator. And she talked about in the interview a little bit more that she dealt with like a lot of traumatic like situations that dealt with young people in her previous career. So I feel like that definitely went into this book. And I just think she was so, it was just such a human book, and it was just raw and painful but beautiful, and I just really enjoyed it overall. So I was happy to hear from you guys throughout the month that you were enjoying it as well. So can't wait to hear more of your specific thoughts. But let's talk about our characters, because there are like a good number of characters, but I didn't think it was too much. And obviously Isaac and Evangeline are our main two. And then I didn't know if like Jonah is also one of the main characters, because we hear so much from his perspective throughout the book. But I would say Isaac and Evangeline are like the two stars of the book. And I just thought of this, but I would love to see this book in like a TV show or a movie, because I would love to see who they cast as Isaac and Evangeline because they were just really interesting characters, and I would like to see it come to life. But for sure, Evangeline was my favorite character. She was so just like interesting, and like so much has happened to her in her short life, and I loved seeing her like evolution for one, but also to see like how her strength changed over time, and how like when she was on her own, and like as she was trying to acclimate to like life with Isaac and Lori, um she had those like guardrails up as you would expect, and not wanting to accept their kindness or their love for what it is, and she was always like kind of making excuses or trying to like put that barrier up between them, like, oh, they're just doing this because they want something from me or whatever. And like those moments were so heartbreaking to read because it felt so real. Like you can imagine a child or a young adult like who has not known love and not known unconditional love feeling that way. And it was amazing to see how her character over time, and I didn't feel like it was rushed or anything. Like it felt very like natural on the like pace of the story, and that over time she eventually did accept that unconditional love from Isaac and Lori, and I just love that. And her friend Natalia, I was so glad that she like connected with someone at school, because that is so hard if you come like into the school year, either as even on the first day, if you come in as a new kid, it's hard, but like in the middle of the year coming into school and having like all this like these rumors and stuff going on, I'm just so glad that she made a friend like right off the bat, because that would have been so much harder if she didn't have like an ally at school that she could count on. So I was so happy for Evangeline throughout the book, and loved to see and hear. Like, I love hearing from different perspectives in books. That is my favorite thing. And I thought this book did a really great job at that, because we knew what she was feeling. And like from the outside, she probably was really different and more like closed off, but you knew on the inside she was growing and like accepting over time. And same with Isaac, like as a Quaker, like I never knew anything about Quakers. So that was really interesting for him to have so much of his like personality really be dictated by his religion, and that he really didn't talk very much, and how that broke up his marriage and had a lot of strain on his relationship with his son, even on that last morning of Daniel's life. Like that was really heartbreaking to hear that story, that they were in like this fight where Isaac didn't like respond and wouldn't like address it with Daniel. I don't even remember what the argument was about, but it was like basically just that Isaac wouldn't like speak, for lack of a better explanation, and he was so internalized that it pushed people away. And so I loved his experience with Evangeline, who like is so feisty and so just like straight to the point and like blunt, and I just loved her so much. And she was the perfect foil to Isaac, and he needed someone like her to push him, and he pushed her too. And so they were just like the most unlikely but perfect pairing of characters, and I just absolutely loved them separately, but also because of each other. They had so much character development, and I just really felt for these characters. Like, there's been many books that I've read recently and in the past that I just didn't really care about the characters, so I didn't feel for them. Like, this book is the opposite. I felt so much reading this and just truly felt in these characters' shoes as much as I possibly could. Like, Evangeline, especially, I feel like once she entered Isaac's life, I feel like I experienced that whole thing myself of what she went through. But like, yeah, so love them, especially Evangeline. And yeah, I just thought that it was like the words that I kept putting together were like painful and beautiful. Like, that is how this book like came across to me, was that it was so raw and so difficult. Like, the situation that they're in is so difficult, and trying to like move on as much as possible. It was so realistic and so painful and beautiful. And that's like, I just kept rewriting that phrase down for so many different parts because that's just really what I took from it. So let me catch up on the comments. The writing was so brilliant, though the narration switched back and forth. I was never taken out, even when the timeline kind of switched too. Yes. Oh my gosh, I was so like engrossed. Like, I totally agree. And when the timeline would switch, that like, I have never experienced a book quite like this where the timeline would switch like mid chapter. Like, it would be kind of out of nowhere that a memory or something would come up. And I thought that that was interesting to have those little breadcrumbs, and then like eventually they would share it. And so that kept you like guessing. But yeah, I agree. I was never like removed from the story or anything like that. Okay, let's talk about Jonah. So, Jonah, wow. What an interesting like thing. And I'm really glad that she put in his perspective, because I think without it, the book would have felt like it still would have been a really great book. But since the like heart of why this whole situation even happened was the murder of Daniel and then Jonah's suicide, I was really happy to get some insight as to what happened and why this happened, especially a person who, like, they're best friends from the outside and they grew up together. So I feel like they're more like brothers because of their history and just how much they have gone through together, and like growing up with someone else, like especially Jonah basically being in Daniel's shadow, that really reminded me of like siblings. And I feel like brothers especially have that kind of built-in competition. Like, me and my sister are 6 years apart, so I've never felt like we were competition. But I'm sure some siblings, no matter the gender, have that competition. But I felt like even though they were friends, there was that competition aspect of their relationship. And so it was really great to see from Jonah's perspective not all of it, but just like moments that kind of added up over time to be like enough to push him over the edge to such a brutal murder, which I wish it wasn't as like graphic with his murder. Like, I would say that part I didn't particularly like, but having all of the information and the fact that like Jonah and I just can't believe he didn't even know Evangeline's name. Like, he just calls her Red. And for him and Red to not like, for him to have feelings for Red, and then for Daniel to be like just such a pig and being like bragging about raping her, that that is so disturbing. And like, I can't believe that he like actually murdered him on the spot. But that, like, in addition to everything else that they had gone through together and all of, like, just what Jonah felt with being in Daniel's shadow, like, yeah, that was really interesting, I would say, and really, like, made it make more sense because at first I was like, "Oh, wow, like, what happened there? Like, was it like, I would have never expected what actually happened between these characters, and it was, I thought, really great to have Jonah's perspective, but I wasn't fully satisfied with the ending of his chapters, I'm not gonna lie. Um, I wish, and then the epilogue, I was so confused. If anyone understood the epilogue, please help me because I feel like that the epilogue was through like Jonah's perspective, but it was so like, I guess, I don't know, like so different than the rest of the book that I was like, what is even happening? Like I read back through it today and I feel like I could appreciate it more, but it's very just like deep, like very philosophical. And yeah, so if you like totally get the epilogue, please let us know in the comments. But yeah, I was glad to have Jonah's perspective and I would have loved Lori's perspective. Lori is the one character that I feel like the book needed like one chapter or like two chapters with Lori's perspective. And then I think I would have been like 100% satisfied. Like there was just that missing piece to me of Lori's perspective because she is such an inspirational person. To me, like she's fictional, but definitely real women are like her. And she was just such an incredible, like open-hearted person. And it's not easy to be like that. And so I would have loved to hear her internal struggles of being that type of person and being such a rock for so many people. Like her circle might be small, but she's like so essential and so like she literally is like the glue of her like true family, but then also for Evangeline, like that relationship, like Evangeline basically chose Lori at the end, like when Isaac was being like just very stubborn. And of course, there's just so many emotions and so much like difficult to imagine like Isaac be befriending um the murder of his son by this woman's son, like for them to become like okay with each other, that is very very complicated. But when he was like, we don't need her, like we're fine on our own, just me, you and the baby, and Evangeline was like, no, we need Lori, I need Lori, and like either you will have all of us or you will have none of us. And first of all, Evangeline, what a mama bear, what a badass. And but anyway, like Lori was just so interesting to me and I wanted more. I wanted some because we didn't have any. Like I wanted some of her perspective in the book, like and trying to like she's mourning the death of her son and trying to accept like what he did and losing him all at the same time. Like it's so like unbelievable to imagine. And yeah, so that would have made the book 10 out of 10 for me, was to have Lori's perspective. And then Rufus the dog, oh my god, how like amazing was Rufus. I really loved him and I haven't read many books where an animal is a such like an integral part to the story. Like, he was like human, I would say. And in that interview that I mentioned on the Shondaland website with the author, Joanne Tompkins, she mentioned that her dog, who has passed away, Hank, he was the inspiration for Rufus, and that she had wanted to write a memoir for Hank, but it never like really came to fruition. So she used the character of Rufus as that tribute to her own dog, and that like Hank, who is Rufus essentially, would just have this intuition when someone was like internally hurting, even if they weren't like crying or anything like that. Like, he just knew when people needed comfort. And that is like exactly like Rufus in the book. And it was just beautiful to have him as part of their family. And it was so upsetting how he like was declining in his health, and like at the same time that he died, like Evangeline's child was being born. Like, it was just, I feel like there's so many like metaphors in this book that I've barely like grasped. And I feel like this book would deserve a reread because I just think it's really, really well done. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars just because I wasn't like, I feel like I shouldn't rate books right after I read them, because this is a book that like you really need to like ruminate on and like really process. And I feel like the more I think about it, the more I like it and the more I appreciate it. And so anyway, I just think this book is phenomenal, for lack of a better word. And let me catch up on the comments because I've just been like monologuing for the past 10 minutes. Okay, the writing felt so natural and human. The characters were fully formed and had reasons for the way they thought and acted. For this to be a debut novel is especially impressive. So, so true. And it's just like amazing to me. Like, I literally cannot wait for more books from this author. Oh my gosh, this is so similar to what I just said. I only finished the book earlier in the day, so I'm still absorbing things. Yes, it will take, like, I finished this a few days ago and I'm still absorbing things. Like, it's just so good. I feel like that is a sign of a really, really good book. The end of his last living chapter was just him taking a leak. LOL, ugh. I know. I was like, is there gonna be another chapter? Because I was just like, no, this can't be it. Yes, how did Lori go through all that and just carry on like a busy mom? I know! Like, oh my god, when they showed the flashbacks to when, like, her husband, like, the day he committed suicide, and she was, like, so incredible, like, knew every right thing to say, which, like, would so not have been what I would do because I would just be panicking. But she was just so amazing, and we need to know more. We just need to know more. And that's so sweet. I had no idea Rufus was modeled after her own pet. Yeah, that like blew my mind when I read that, because I was like, wow, that like made perfect sense to me once I read it. Like, I would never guess that. But like the way she talked about Rufus, thinking back, I'm like, yeah, it's like he was like, she knew him. And so it's kind of cool that she did know like Hank, or a version of Rufus. So I thought that was just a really cool little fun fact. Okay, so now that we kind of got through all of the characters, I would love to know your favorite parts. And my absolute favorite part that I will not forget for a really long time, hopefully I will never forget it, is when Evangeline overhears Isaac talking to George, I think. And he's like, I really something like, I really regret, or something like that. Like, and she interprets it like he wishes that he never like took her in, and that he made a huge mistake, and like all that stuff. And that's not like, he did say that, but it's not what he meant, and he just didn't know she was there, and of course never would have said it if he knew she could hear him. He was just like venting. So Evangeline heard it, and with all of her prior experience and already feeling like there's part of him that doesn't want me here. Like, I know he's just doing this because he thinks that my baby is Daniel's baby or whatever, which thank God it's not. Like, so she's taking all of that into that one like thing that she hears, and so she runs away. And first of all, I thought it was so like, I wish she didn't run away, but it was so like, it showed so much growth that she ran away to somewhere where he could find her. Like, she didn't just like go somewhere completely like leaving them all behind. Like, she wanted him to find her, and like, so she went somewhere that would be possible for him to find her. And when he finally did find her in the boat, in George's boat, and like that like reunion was so emotional to me. Like, I was just like a mess when I was reading that chapter. And or I think it was a few chapters, like one in her perspective, one in his perspective, that when like he finally got there, and she was like hiding, and he was like, I know you're here and you know where to find me. Like, she wasn't coming out because like she wanted him to do more, but like him just being there was like the most basically that he could do for her. And so eventually when she did like come out from like under the tarp or whatever, that's what I like picture, is her like under a tarp. But and them like having that reunion and choosing each other, like that was the most emotional thing I read in this book. And there's so much emotional stuff in this book, but for me that was the most like beautiful thing, and like the perfect depiction of that like found family, chosen family idea, that like these two people were complete strangers just a few months ago, but they need each other, and they love each other, and they choose each other. And it was just so beautiful and so like incredible that I just, yeah, that's the part that wrecked me the most. And thankfully after that, Evangeline like didn't like feel like she had to run away, because she knew Isaac did love her unconditionally, even if it was hard for him to communicate that. Like, that experience is kind of all the explanation you need. Like, that was kind of proving they were like father and daughter, like in theory. And he would do anything to get her back. So I just thought that was so beautiful. And that was definitely my favorite part of the book. Um, Oh, yes. My favorite aspect is that there isn't a twist to who the father actually is / isn't. Because of the due date, we think it's between the two boys, but when we find out later that the due date is moved up, we know it's the mystery encounter we haven't seen yet. Yes, I was so like nervous that it was Peter, because I was like, oh dear God, like they're so weird together, and just this like uncomfortable like vibe that I was like, he better not have done something to her. Like, I was so scared. And yes, she did see him there, but it was just some other disgusting guy. So I was glad for Evangeline's sake. Like, she didn't know who that guy was. She never cross paths with him again, because she can just have her baby without like Isaac feeling like it's his grandchild or Lori feeling like it's hers. Like there is no connection to either of them. It's just Evangeline's baby. And yeah, I was glad that that was like not part of the story. I think one of the things that stuck with me was when Lori was outside Isaac's house and Evangeline was ignoring her. Oh my God, that Lori knew Evangeline was home because Rufus was barking. Yes, literally, I forgot about that part till you just said it, Jamie. That was such a great part because it was like, wow, Lori like knows this house and this family, and like that was really really cool. And that Evangeline was like, oh shit, when Lori was like, why didn't you open the door? And she was like, oh, I wasn't home. And she was like, oh well, I knew you were because Rufus only barks when he's protecting people. And I just thought that was so perfect. I love that part. And yeah, Lori and Isaac, they're like connection and like yeah, that intertwined aspect of their households is so interesting. And this just made me think, her daughter, I feel like I was a little concerned that her daughter was like not really involved other than that one chapter where she like picked her up from school. Like I wish that, I mean, I guess she was kind of in a few other chapters, but I don't know. I just figured she would be more of a prominent like person in the book, and I don't know. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. But I sometimes I was like, like I guess she's old enough. What am I to say? But anyway, yes, loved their like just their longevity of their relationship, like Lori and Isaac's family. That was really cool that she knew so much about them even before Evangeline came into their lives. Okay, let me see. What else did I have to say? Because I've already been talking for 32 minutes. I think I went over like everything. Yeah, the last chapter, I kind of touched on this when Isaac, like the last chapter before the epilogue. I thought that last chapter before the epilogue was perfection because it was like the perfect like close of the chapter for Isaac. Like he opened Daniel's door for the first time, which was such a like huge turning point for his character. And like that was mind-blowing in and of itself, that he is kind of moving on and like healing and in a place where he felt like he could open his son's door and not have it feel like it was breaking his heart. So that was really amazing. And then like the last thing that he does in the book is call Lori and like here's the baby over the phone, and he like finally finds his voice and is like, I know it's late, but do you mind if I come over? And I was just like, yes, Isaac. Like I was so proud of Isaac. I was so happy for him. And I just love that ending for his character, and that he like obviously was pained to like interact with Lori because of what happened between their sons, but like Lori is part of his life and like will be as long as he chooses to like try to like accept her and not blame her for what her son did. And I just thought that was beautiful and I loved it. And yeah, I just loved it. I think that is kind of a good ending to end here. If you guys have any other thoughts on what comes after, please let me know. Let's see. Yes, they did Nell's dirty. Her dad tried to kill her and they just move on. I know. It's like we need a Lori and Nell's book, because their perspectives would, like, because of what happened to Nels, like, yeah, we need more. And the point when he's interested in improving the house again, I know. Isaac, he knew how to pull at our heartstrings. I loved it, and I can't wait to see what else Joanne Tompkins writes, and I think I will be rereading this eventually. I have so many books I need to read, but this was a really, really great one, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed it too. And yes, this book was emotional devastation. Yes, it was. I That's why I feel like the majority of the month reading like thrillers that are like, obviously it's like not fun, but they're like lighthearted. And then my book club book, I usually pick something deeper because like I can only handle one deep book like a month. So anyway, I'm glad you guys liked it, and thank you so much for all of your feelings and sharing and all of that. And now I'm going to announce our October book, and this one is different than typical books that I pick because this is actually a historical fiction, and normally I don't really like historical fiction just because I don't give it a chance, you know? Like, I shouldn't say I don't like it. I just don't choose it over other genres. So, October's book pick is The Lincoln Highway by Amos Towles. I hope I'm saying the author's name correctly. But this book just really intrigued me from its synopsis, and I'm just going to read this whole thing. It's not too long, but it's a little longer than the typical synopsis I read. But the Lincoln Highway is about an 18-year-old who is driven home to Nebraska by the warden of the work farm where he had just served a year for involuntary manslaughter. Emmett's Okay, yeah, so the character's name is Emmett. Emmett's intention is to pick up his 8-year-old brother and head west, where they can start their lives anew. But when the warden drives away, Emmett discovers that two friends from the work farm have hidden themselves in the trunk of the warden's car. Together, they have hatched an altogether different plan for Emmett's future. And that is just like, whoa, to me. It just feels like it's going to be a wild ride and just sounded really interesting. So the Lincoln Highway is going to be our October book pick. It's not like a spooky book, but hopefully you guys enjoy it nonetheless. And I can't wait to read it because it's getting really great reviews. And apparently the author's other books are like really, really like highly regarded as well. So it might be a new author that we discovered together, or if you guys have read any of Amos Towles' books, let us know. I hope you liked them if you did. And so that is it for tonight, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thank you all so, so much. And oh, good, Annie, thank you. I hope you love the What Comes After book. I need to listen to more audiobooks. I think like you guys, whenever you say you listen to the audiobooks, you always love it. So I think I need to do that more. But thank you so much for being here, you guys. Thank you for your participation. And I will see you guys very soon. Have an awesome rest of your night. Bye. Thanks again.